We had a productive meeting yesterday, and with all four leaders in the Congress. It was civil and respectful. And to be clear, this negotiation is about the outlines of what the budget will look like, not about whether or not we're going to, in fact, pay our debts. The leaders have all agreed we will not default. Every leader has said that.
President Biden sounding confident that the country will not default with only 15 days to reach a deal. He has officially cut his trip overseas short and will return to D.C. on Sunday to focus on these negotiations. President Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy have agreed to meet directly mano a mano, and McCarthy said reaching a deal on Sunday is doable. That is a far cry from what he was saying just a couple of days ago. Meanwhile, some Senate Democrats have urged the president to use the 14th Amendment to raise the debt ceiling without an act of Congress. We need to explain that one. Joining me tonight, Peter Spiegel, U.S. Managing Editor for the Financial Times. What do you know about the status of negotiations? That's a very different sounding Kevin McCarthy. And even President Biden, who not long ago was, I got no negotiating to do.
I was just about to say both of them sound very different. I mean, the other clip you didn't show there, but before he got on the plane to the G7, he said, look, there are areas in welfare, in welfare reform, forcing people to work for some of these welfare benefits that the Republicans have been asking for, he's willing to talk about. So clearly there's a landing zone that the two of them are talking about. And I suspect that's why the markets have been bounced today. I think everyone suspects now there is a deal to be had when he gets back on Sunday.
I spoke to some pretty senior people in banking this afternoon who, and maybe it's premature, but they are breathing a sigh of relief that you didn't hear even 2 days ago.
Absolutely. And I think this gets to the other point you raised, which is why is the 14th Amendment suddenly being raised by these progressive in the Senate?
I actually want to share. I spoke to the president about it just 2 weeks ago, and here's what he said. There are members of Congress that might be okay with us defaulting because they think it could hurt you more politically. Given that, are you prepared to invoke the 14th Amendment and blow through the debt ceiling?
I've not gotten there yet.
Okay. I want you to explain to our audience the 14th Amendment. Using the 14th Amendment, this is like break glass in case of emergency territory. This is not just door number 3 option on the table.
Which is why I don't think he's going to do it. Look, the 14th Amendment, when we normally talk about it, this is the big civil rights amendment, right? It's the Equal Protection Clause, Brown versus Board of Education. We use some Roe versus Wade. Buried in like the Section 4, it says, oh, by the way, also debts of the United States can't be questioned. That unlike all those other civil rights issues, this has never been litigated.
Never
been litigated. So if Biden pulls the trigger on the 14th Amendment, oh, my God, that's going to be in the courts for months.
Pandora's box.
For months. So,
and could send markets reeling.
Absolutely, because it won't
and
actually settle
confidence.
the issue. It won't settle the issue. So legally, he's not going to use it. Politically, I also, again, look, why the people who are now pushing this, it's Bernie Sanders, it's Elizabeth Warren, it's the progressive in the Democratic caucus, because they are worried that he's going to strike a deal on federal welfare benefits. They don't want him to basically claw back stuff that is now, there's money that goes to people who need it. It's now going to be required to work for it. And the Elizabeth Warrens and the Bernie Sanders of the world don't want that. So they say, hey, let's cut off these negotiations and pull the trigger of the 14th Amendment. I don't think Biden wants to do it legally, and I don't think he wants to do it politically. He's a deal maker. He has a deal in place. He's going to get it done on Sunday. I don't think the 14th Amendment happens.
Nobody likes what is happening here. But as long as a deal gets done by June 1st, will we avoid any economic damage?
Yeah, I think so, because it's happened before, right? It happened in 2011. There is, in short-term, the bond market, which you and I follow quite closely, there is some turmoil. But the markets aren't focusing on this right now. They're focusing on the broader, on what the Fed is doing, what is happening in commercial real estate, in other bits of the economy. But they are not worried. People do not think the U.S. government is going to default on its loans. It hasn't before. They know the kabuki dance. It's going to end on Sunday, and it will be peaceful.
And nobody wants to watch these lawmakers dance. But let's get to these other topics, because something that is plaguing us every day, the Fed is dealing with inflation. They have raised interest rates a whole lot in a short amount of time. And I want to share this because according to CoStar, nearly 13% of office spaces across the United States are empty, the highest percentage we have seen since 2008. Other data shows that in some places, it's as high as 20%. I want you to walk us through whether this is just sort of a perfect storm of high rates, regional bank mini crisis, and work from home, or Is this a canary in the coal mine of a lot of really bad stuff to come?
So it has been in the past, and you're right. Where are the places where it's higher than 14%? Here in New York, we see it every day. San Francisco. I mean, I was just in San Francisco in the middle of the work week in the financial district. There is no one there.
D.C., pick your city.
Chicago. So, all right, you laid out the sequence of events. But let's break this down. First, the pandemic. People stopped going to the office. We thought maybe people would start going back. They're not. Mondays and Fridays are gone. So suddenly, office space, particularly in places like Manhattan, San Francisco, are empty. You're not getting rents. So your cash flow in your building is suddenly collapsing. The value of your building starts to go down. Well, if you're paying 2% on your mortgage or on the loan you did to buy this building, I can deal with that. As the money doesn't come in so much, I can pay off my debt. Well, the Fed starts raising rates.
A lot.
Suddenly, you've doubled your payments, right? You've got from 2 to 3% to 6 or 7%.
But your
I can't find it. And your office is empty. No one's coming back. Those rents aren't going up again. Now, you add the third element to this, right? Who holds the loans? In commercial real estate, it's not the big JP Morgans in the world. It's these regional banks. What have we been following since March? The regional banks are the ones that are under intense pressure by the markets, by the regulators. They don't want to say, I don't want to mark down that loan on that real estate anymore. So suddenly they can't mark it down on their balance sheet. If they do, people start selling it off. So there is the beginning, and you're starting to hear it quietly in the markets. It's a very opaque market. It's not like your residential real estate, like it happened in 2007, 2008. You can see the houses being foreclosed on. So it's very difficult to see what's happening with commercial real estate.
That's why I want to talk about it, because the average viewer could be saying, I don't own commercial real estate, I don't care. But what we need to solve for, is this an isolated consequence in a post-pandemic economy, or is it the canary in the coal mine that we need to be paying attention for while we're wondering if a recession is on the horizon?
It is the latter, but I don't want people to panic. Look, commercial real estate is big, but it is not 2007 residential real estate big. I mean, the commercial real estate market is less than half the size of residential. So it's a big part of the economy. It's also, even in commercial real estate, right? Office buildings are a small 20% of commercial real estate. You have warehouses that are doing pretty well. You have data centers that are doing pretty well. You have hospitals. There are other things that in commercial real estate that are still doing pretty well. So it's a relatively small part of the economy. But what we know about panics is people panic.
And so lose confidence.
Right. So little bits of the economy that start getting screwy can have a knock-on effect. So that's what everyone was worrying about with these regional banks in March, the March Madness, right? Ooh, one bank goes down. Should I pull my money out of this bank? And it starts to domino. So if there is a bank or two that really has to write down their loans on commercial real estate, does the same thing start to happen? You see one bank after another bank after another bank get to fail, and then suddenly people start pulling their money out of the banks, and you do have a domino effect. The Fed is watching this very closely. The IMF is watching this globally. So there is rising concern in the important places about this. I don't think we need to panic, but we need to pay attention to it.
Here's the takeaway. Don't freak out, but keep an eye on it. Peter, you definitely made us smarter tonight.